All right, hi guys, welcome back to our IMI Global webinar series. Today I have a special group of individuals that are gonna talk to us about traceability and identification. So first off, I have Nevil Speer. He is our Director of Industry Relations with Where Food Comes From, our parent company. And then I have Andrew Dorn, and he is the Global Marketing person for Allflex. So we really appreciate you both coming on here, and we are excited to learn from you. So we are ready to go when you all are.
Okay, cool. Great. Ashley, thank you. We appreciate that, and we are excited to be here and really excited to have Andy with us. And so that, our intent here today is to talk about Beef Passport, and really we're going to kind of take this in two different parts. I'm going to kind of provide a broader overview about traceability and just consumers and why all of this is important. And then Andy will take it from there and drill down into some of the technology and some of the inner workings of how Beef Passport works and give you some ideas. And we'll go from there. And hopefully this is just the first of several to come about Beef Passport as we go through this. So, just a real quick, kind of background on IMI. We are a division, as Ashley mentioned, of Where Food Comes From. There's 25 years of experience in the business here. But I think what's really important, and I'll come back to this point at the end, that our major intent is to focus on helping producers meet the needs of consumers. And in other words, really, we're focused on helping producers in the marketplace. And with that in mind, it's very important to think about a Beef Passport is that it's really producer driven, it's industry driven, it's done on the behalf of producers and to make the industry better. Ashley mentioned the word traceability, and in my experience, that can get to be a really complicated and kind of a jumbled type of topic where we get a lot of things confused. But I think it's important to remember that there's the private side in terms of when we talk about consumer orientation, and that's where I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking today. But then, that along with that are the value-added market opportunities and delivering desired attributes to the marketplace. On the other side of that is the public side, which is often focused on animal disease and/or food security. And oftentimes in our business, we talk about those as sort of an either or. One of the great things about Beef Passport is that really it can be and. We can meet both of these through the Beef Passport solution, and hopefully we can kind of demonstrate how we bring those together as we talk through this. I think it's important to remember, kind of back up and look at where we've been in terms of the national beef quality audits. And if you kind of look pre-millennium, all of the concerns were really very product oriented. But as soon as we got to 2005 and the last two beef quality audits, there was a new sort of theme that began to emerge, and that's really around traceability or how and where cattle were raised. But all of a sudden that concept of story and delivering desired attributes just above and beyond just the product became very important in the marketplace. And again, that's really what we try to do, is we facilitate that need from the consumer side back into the production side. And it's a free market, voluntary transaction, and it really creates value all through the production chain. So with that in mind, though, I just want to kind of touch on a couple of important surveys, and as we talk about consumers and why do we do this and why does Beef Passport exist and all of that. I think it's important to remember that consumers are increasingly very focused on transparency. If you look at kind of those bigger topics, they want to know more about where their food comes from. They want to know whether the food industry is taking action on how food is produced, and they want to know about that. And that's generally about 2 in 3 consumers. And if you look at some of the more recent data, as we get into younger consumers, those numbers actually increase, and so the market's becoming even more segmented towards that particular direction. I really like this. This is a brand new data from the Power of Meat, the most recent 2020 survey. But if you look at whether it's important in terms of transparency of how and where livestock were raised, and whether a meat brand or a grocery store is providing that, but roughly 2/3, 68%, and more than half want that information either one way or the other. They either want it tied to the brand, or they consider their retail store responsible for providing that information. But either way you look at that, it's clear that transparency is becoming increasingly important, and consumers increasingly want to know about whatever attributes it is in terms of the products that they are purchasing. So I wanted to provide a real life example, though, of some of this that happens in the marketplace, and give you a little more international flavor. Just about a year ago, my family and I were in London, and we stayed down in the financial district, and where we stayed had a really nice restaurant, and they were promoting US beef. And so we went into the restaurant, and I began to ask lots of questions. But interestingly enough, this is a picture of the menu, and it's featuring Creekstone, Kansas USDA Black Angus beef. And so I explained to everyone in there in the restaurant that was there that that was really all sourced through an NHTC program. And that we work very closely with Creekstone, and that would have been a product that had been verified by where food comes from. And so, we talk about these things kind of in ethereal manner, and it's hard to put your finger on it, but here's a real life example, and you really can see, kind of connect the dots. And I think it's important then too that those types of things really do end up back upstream to the producer. And there are real value. There's real value there. There's real premiums. These are the 3-year premiums, 2017 through 2019, at a feeder cattle level from Superior Livestock. And for example, you'll see there non-hormone treated cattle for heifers, the average premium was $6 per hundredweight. For steers, it was $5.50. That $2+ premium for source and age has been very consistent and just never seems to go away. And then that verified natural beef, it's going to be a little bit higher, but these are real claims that drive real value, and clearly producers are benefiting from that. So with respect to traceability, and kind of backing up to that particular topic, the World Perspective study that was commissioned by NCBA, a couple of things were really important there, that it needed to be industry driven, needed to serve both public and private, as we mentioned earlier. Data privacy needs to be fair to all industry sectors, needs to be compatible with industry practices. Andy's going to talk about this, but operate at the speed of commerce. And then, of course, it needs to be credible in both domestic and international markets. It needs to be recognized. It needs to be trusted, both domestically and internationally. I think it's interesting too. I serve on the Animal ID and Info Systems Council at the National Institute for Animal Agriculture, and we just recently had opportunity to go through our resolutions, and I was reading carefully our 5th resolution. And interesting enough, it reads as this large number of animals are aggregated, and electronic information management systems have potential for increasing the volume of reliable traceability data and decreasing labor requirements without slowing the speed of commerce. And I think as we talk about Beef Passport, that's precisely what we're trying to do, is to help speed up information management, decreasingly rely on human intervention here, because people do make mistakes, and we certainly do not ever want to slow down the speed of commerce. And so we do that through Beef Passport, and what Beef Passport does is it has the capability of facilitating animal disease traceability. That's the public side of it. And at the very least, we can do a bookend approach, but in most cases, we can provide full traceability. But then also what we do with that program is we reduce the friction in terms of communication through the segments around cattle that are in any one of these particular programs. Data security and confidentiality are our #1 priority, always have been. We've done this for 25 years and have never had any issues in terms of either security or confidentiality, and that's one of the real big keys as we go in and talk to producers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and Andy, I'll drive your slides for you.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Just a real quick question on your previous. Which steak did you have in Manhattan? In London.
I had a ribeye. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I was there a few years ago. Very good place.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about how some of the data is collected to get into Beef Passport here, and in most ways it's it can be done numerous ways, but the specific way we're going to talk about here is through panel readers. They're fixed antennas and readers that as the picture shows you on the screen here is actually at a feed yard, but you could have this similar setup at a sale barn or a harvesting facility. Much the same, wouldn't change a lot depending upon your operation. But you can see the arrows pointing, and the far lower left arrow is pointing to the antenna, and that is the antenna and the reader that actually reads the cattle going through the alleyway. There's one on each side of those alleyways, so you've got a double alley there with 4 antennas and actually 2 readers. So we don't need to get down into the weeds about that, but it actually collects all the reads into a box that we call Biologic, and it's a cellular based system that collects the reads and actually sends them to IMI's Beef Passport system. That then correlates those numbers to program cattle and verifies them that they're in the certain program that they're supposed to be. So we take a source and age or an NHTC, and that load of animals walks through those readers in about, I don't remember what Dale says, Neville, but less than a minute per load.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
And they kind of pick and choose. They don't, the feed yard doesn't force them down one alley or the other. Lets them flow through there naturally, and man, once they get going, they just walk right through. It doesn't affect them at all. So that process takes, I guess a minute to a minute and a half per 35 to 40 head. We collect that data, it goes to Beef Passport and returns a report to the feed yard that says, yes, they're good to go, or no, you've got an animal in here that's an outlier. That gives the feed yard, in this case, the ability to identify that animal before they actually ship, right? I mean, how big of a deal is it for you to ship let's say a non-program calf with a load of NHTCs, Neville? What happens then?
Yeah, that's a big problem, especially if they make it through. Yes.
Exactly. So it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of headache, and this seemingly solves that for you, right? If you want to go to the next one. So
yeah, you want to go here. Yeah.
Yep. So this is a report that would tell you, it'd give you the list of tags. It'd tell you where they were detected and when and what date, and the site and which antenna or reader that it reads. So pretty simple report. It's just basically giving you a list of all the tags read that day. If you want, you can sort it kind of any different way you want. You can sort it down to the hour that the animals pass through. Go to the next one. So this is the report that's giving you the green or yellow. In this case, they're all green, which means that they're all validated for the program. So it gives the person a view of the producer number. whether their source and age, etc. You can read all across there which programs that they're approved for. If there was an animal in there that was not approved, that line would be yellow. And then you could identify that animal by his EID and visual number that you have into the system to go back through that 35 head or whatever you have sorted off and find that animal to make sure that he doesn't go on the load. At a harvesting facility, it's used much the same. However, they're already at the harvesting facility, right? The difference is they can plan what to do with the animal, right? They don't have to go sort him off the rail and find his carcass. They know that there's one in there. They can plan for that and save people a lot of time and paperwork before they get too far down the chain. Go to the next slide. Here's just another example of a report list. This would be your days and time. So you can see that about every 20 minutes, different amount of cattle are going through there. See on 8/20/18, there was 7 head, then all the way up to 9/2/18, there's 31 head, and in between there's 52, 13, etc. No duplicates are found, and the unique IDs would be the cattle that are in the program. If there's cattle not found, it would say the total search was 31. There was 30 uniques and one not found. So that would tell you that you have an outlier in that group and to go in and look at him. These reports come via email as well, right? So it's not like you have to go and look at every time. You'll get an emailed list of each one of these if you wish to set it up that way. Go to the next one. So this is a running tally of all the tags, and you can download every tag that you've ever read at your place if you so wish. Or again, you can sort it by date. So say, Neville, you're looking for a calf that walked through the alley reader on March 20th, and you don't have his exact number, but you know the date and you know the time. You can narrow that down and get that group of animals so that you can find him. Same thing, just a different location. So we can go to the next one. And this just kind of represents, kind of to think about, right? Something to think about if you had a closed loop system within your operation and you had multiple sites or a traceability system. I mean, think about this in the way that you could trace cattle. It's a lot like the COVID tracing that we have, right? And all the hot spots, etc. But it's much the same, and where you could tie things together and you could start tying groups of animals together and where they've been and where they went. But kind of a cool graphic just to think about what could be done.
So with that, Andy, just and one thing to clarify here, one of the things that's really powerful in all of this is if you have a read on the feed yard side before they get on the truck, and then you have another read at the packer level, and those don't match up, or the packer gets a load of cattle, they're missing a tag, they can go back and check with the feed yard that animal actually may have gotten on, tag fell out, but before, or it may be a problem. But to your very point, we can eliminate that before they go into the packing house and try to get that addressed.
I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that have dealt with that, right? Where they shipped 35 head from the feed yard and the harvesting facility receives 34 by the count. Well, one of two things happened, right? Somebody miscounted, or an animal fell off the truck, or they just couldn't find him, or he didn't get on. But in this case, it really alleviates some of that pain because it's no longer people counting. It's that and a technology tool to count them. And if you're the feed yard, Neville, and I'm the harvesting facility, and I received 34 head, but you sent 35, it's a lot easier to prove that you sent 35, right?
No question.
You've got 35 unique IDs, and maybe I only have 34. Well, what happened? Let's go count them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get to the bottom of it. But it makes it a lot quicker and more efficient to be able to have this, and it documents it. You know,
Yes.
it's a unique ID.
Again, and as I mentioned earlier, it reduces friction in terms of communication.
That's right.
Everybody knows what they have. Yes.
That's right.
Really okay.
That's right.
Well, just wanted to kind of give everyone some idea of kind of the power of this and what's happening. We're through the first 3 months of the year, we were reading about 400 to 500,000 tags every single month. Clearly through April, May, and June, that began to slow down because of COVID and with slaughter slow down. But interesting enough, even if you compare second quarter versus first quarter, unique tags, we were running right at about 79 to 80%, you know, quarter versus quarter. And that's precisely kind of where we were in terms of fed, steer, and heifer slaughter. And so it really, I think, speaks to also the power of the program, that program cattle generally get first slots. They've been able to keep up. And have been able to work through the feed yard with very good consistency, and also it really speaks to the power of the number of cattle that are going through and that we're able to track through this. So with that in mind, you know, Beef Passport, it really is, it's a real-time traceability tool, and it as we've mentioned, it verifies that animals are enrolled in certain programs, and again, that reduces friction between the various segments, and there's no problems in terms of miscommunication or what have you. It helps then, therefore, to facilitate the supply chain coordination. But I think then also, lastly, the last point there, it provides full compliance to ADT in terms of disease traceability reporting, and just emphasizing that it's in a confidential, secure data system. We work very hard at that, and the only way data gets shared is through permissions from a producer. So it is a very private kind of database. So with that, I think, Ashley, if maybe we have a couple of questions, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, awesome. Well, Neville, this question's going to be for you.
Okay.
So what do you see in regards to customer behavior since the start of COVID? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ashley. In fact, I've just been looking at some surveys this morning, but clearly we see there's a change in behavior. And one of the things that's interesting is that consumers are more interested in purchasing meat products, and along with that, are increasingly doing that online. And when that happens, they also are telling us that they want more information. They're going to spend more time finding out about that product before they purchase it online, versus just sort of making an impulse decision at the retailer. And I think we really are in a position that we're going to see a very favorable market for meat products, and especially those that can differentiate themselves in the marketplace. It's exciting.
Yes, very much. Awesome. Okay, so my last question is actually for Andy. You know, there's a lot of misunderstanding about tag technology. Would you elaborate and give us a better understanding of what that looks like?
Yeah, so everything that we looked at today, as far as pictures and such, that was based on low frequency EIDs, RFID, and the other frequency would be ultra high frequency, or UHF. Today there's keen differences between the two. However, low frequency is likely the most dominant one in the marketplace, very well seated in terms of readers, etc. And if you look at the dairy industry, there is near to 100% adoption of RFID as any industry in the world. I don't know what the exact number is, but if you're on a larger dairy, they're likely utilizing low frequency EID for management of their herd, and all the way through the milking parlors. So industries like that, In the feed yard segment, we're getting back to that push of individual animal management, that we saw in the early 90s. Neville, I guess I didn't, you did. And then again in the late 90s, right, of individually managing animals to more optimize their endpoints. But to answer your question distinctly between the two and not be here for 30 minutes or an extra 3 hours, it's a big conversation. But low frequency reads more line of, it's more, it's a shorter distant read. So, those alleyways or animals are going through one at a time. And where the aspiration for UHF would be that, you read them down a drover's alley, if you will, 16 foot at a time. Now, I said aspiration, and that's what it is at this point. Hopefully someday we can get it there, but the compliance and the ISO standard of RFID is based around low frequency. There's not an ISO standard for ultra high frequency yet in the numbering system. And that basically means that ISO would be compliant among all manufacturers across the globe, in the fact that they have to comply to a way to number them. And so one of the largest things that a tag manufacturer wakes them up at night is duplicating numbers. And we have systems set in place, a very stringent system set in place so that we don't do that. And without that ISO compliance, that risk goes up quite a lot. The ultra high would be in a more visual type of tag, so it'd be more of a dangle tag, and whereas the low frequency today is in a round button tag. The retention seems to go up just a little bit the smaller the tag you get, just because there's less chance of getting snags and things of that nature. But those are probably two larger things for me, being the panel tag and then the ISO compliance being the largest one in the difference. Not to say we can't get there someday, but today where we are is on the on the low frequency industry wide, from dairy, beef, swine, ovine, etc.
Awesome, thank you. Well, that is all I have. Do you two have anything else that you'd like to add or anything before we sign off?
Thanks for the time, and anybody feel free to reach out to any of us. Neville's number and emails down there, so call him first, and I'll just sit in the background. But thanks for the time, and thanks for watching.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Well, again, thank you all for watching. If you have any questions in regards to Beef Passport or tag technology, feel free to reach out to Neville or Andy. And then if you have any questions in regards to verification, please reach out to us. Our number is 303-895-3002, or you can get on our website at imiglobal.com. So we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank y'all.
Thanks.